Today for Devotions with Daniella, we are reading from the much anticipated, critically acclaimed Cultin of America. I think I told you all that Kirkus Review is publishing their amazing review in their hard copy magazine, which is where librarians and bookstore owners read to stock their stuff, and it's very rare for an indie book to be published there. Let's see where the Spirit shall guide us. Ooh, Mormons. Missionizing in high control religions. Missionizing is my word for weaponizing the transcendent mission. Missionizing in high control religions. The practice of sending young individuals on missions is a deeply ingrained rite of passage in the Mormon Church, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, as well as other Christian sects. Typically undertaken in a member's late teens or early 20s, the mission is presented as the ultimate test of faith, loyalty, and readiness to fully dedicate one's life to the cause. As elementary school-aged children, Mormons are introduced to mission songs that have a distinctly military tone. Songs with structured rhythm and a call to duty are powerful tools for instilling a sense of discipline and purpose in young minds. We'll dive deeper into the impact of chanting in Chapter 6. The military metaphors woven throughout these songs and teachings lay the foundation for a hierarchy that emphasizes duty, sacrifice, and unquestioning obedience from a very early age. By the time these kids become teenagers, they've absorbed that sense of duty so deeply that when they're called to serve on a mission, they willingly do so with intense commitment. A mission has physical demands, being sent anywhere in the world and covering their own expenses, but also requires emotional and spiritual dedication. These teenagers are often leaving home for the first time, far from the comfort and security of their families, to spend 2 years spreading the Mormon faith, engaging in community service, and seeking converts. And their mission locations are chosen by the church, reinforcing the belief that they are following a higher calling, no questions asked. Before being sent out, young missionaries undergo a rigorous program known as the Missionary Training Center, MTC, which lasts anywhere from 3 to 12 weeks. The training instills discipline, deepens their knowledge of the faith, and sharpens their communication skills, preparing them to serve as soldiers for the cause. The militaristic undertones aren't subtle. The 2-year missionary period is sometimes referred to as the boot camp of Mormon greatness, reflecting how the church openly embraces the parallel between missionary work and military duty. Sarah, a former Mormon missionary, described her experience to me this way. The timing of the mission is part of it. It's right at that transition point to adulthood. For most missionaries, this is the first time they're leaving home to live on their own. And even if it isn't, it's probably the furthest they've been from home. And to have that first independent experience be completely centering Mormon beliefs, I think really pushes you to make that a part of your adult identity. I went to the Philippines and learned to speak Tagalog. Most of the vocabulary we learned at first was related to church topics. Though many Filipinos learned some English, most I encountered didn't really speak it much. So literally the only conversations I could have for the first several months while I learned the language were mostly about Mormonism, because that was the limit of my vocabulary. Add on to the fact that we weren't supposed to talk about anything else, and the church really does become your whole personality. Even as I became more fluent in Tagalog, most conversations about church were still about church in some way. So for the period of the mission, at least, the church becomes the major thing defining your identity. Even after you go home, you still retain that. As a woman, I had been taught that a career wasn't as important as preparing to be a wife and mother. When I didn't end up getting married as early as many Mormons do, I felt pressure to go on a mission, even though it isn't as strict of a requirement for girls. This was partially family and social pressure, but also because I hadn't really prepared myself mentally to enter a career. Giving my labor to the church allowed me to delay facing that. And ultimately, the mission is a huge sacrifice. It delayed my college graduation 2 years. I worked hard to learn a new language. I lived in a foreign country, working long hours in all weather. Most importantly, I had to say over and over that the Mormon Church was true, and have people know me as someone who said that. The indoctrination of saying something out loud to other people is huge. Nobody wants to be a liar. Nobody wants to waste their time. The sunk costs due to the sacrifice of the mission are huge. Sarah's description mirrors parts of my own childhood in the cult that trafficked me around the world, and it brings up some familiar echoes from U.S. Army basic training, too. The mission itself is a form of identity-breaking indoctrination in the Mormon Church, a way to get the next generation to fully buy in. Idealistic young Mormons, much like the soldiers who stood beside me at the basic training completion ceremony, see only the sweet allure of the mission. The idea of doing something truly meaningful with their lives pulls them in, even if it means becoming a completely different person and enduring hardships along the way. One former Mormon missionary who served in Venezuela from 1991 to 1993 shared a story on my old TikTok account that really hits home. She was surprised to find that her visa application said she was in the country for leadership training. It took her years to realize that the most important person she was being sent to convert wasn't anyone she met there, it was herself. That's the real pull of these missions. You're sold on changing the world, but the truth is, they're changing you. Focusing on young people for missions occurs across mainstream religions. In programs as seemingly benign as Christian Sunday School, Jewish Hebrew School, Quaker First Day School, and the cultural or language schools for various ethnic diasporas. Or there's the Awana Club, a global evangelical children's ministry that kids as young as age 2 can join. Awana presents itself as a leader in child discipleship, encouraging children to share the gospel and invite others to the group. At their best, these groups aim to educate children in their family's heritage and traditions, while imparting character-building lessons along the way. But high-control groups beyond the mainstream also know that young people, especially those in their teens and early 20s, are often in a phase of life where they're exploring their identities, values, and beliefs. This makes them more vulnerable to persuasive messaging that promises a sense of purpose, belonging, or empowerment. According to developmental psychologist Erik Erikson, the main and most important developmental tasks for adolescents are to solve the identity versus role confusion crisis, construct their own unique sense of identity, and find the social environment where they can belong and create meaningful relationships with other people. Extremist ideologies are particularly good at offering that sense of identity and community, which is why they're so effective at recruiting young people. These groups know how to target vulnerabilities using approaches like online propaganda, peer-to-peer recruitment, and content specifically designed to appeal to youth. Or, as I like to say, I don't care, you bring them, just bring them young. We're going to run out of time. So, you can get copies of The Culting of America on pre-order attached here. Comes out January 20th, the 1-year anniversary of us all living in this particular cult.